Hey everyone, so this is Napa, Onwusah, and I am a sales director at Nokia Networks. Very pleased to be part of the GMI Institute, and today we're going to be talking a bit about the art of being a woman in a male-dominated field. So I got a couple of questions and I'll just run through them and answer based on my own experience. So the first question is, what does it take to be a woman of influence in the corporate sphere? There are many aspects to this question, but I think one of the top three things that helps you gain influence is, number one, being good at what you do, being exceptional. It's always a great thing when you know your job, you know the ins and outs of what you are currently doing. It also helps when you add value to yourself through training, through experience, through taking on additional responsibility. Very important. So the first thing is skill, to become a woman of influence. Number two, the second thing is to really invest in your networks. Apart from networking, to actually look at the different aspects of your job. So for example, for me, I need my customer network, all the customers that I've worked with in the past, my current customers, how do I manage them? How do I keep them how do I keep a strong and great relationship with them up until today? Another sphere of my own job is being able to have access to management in my own sector. So not customers, but maybe like the MD of Microsoft, the MD of Cisco. So I need to be able to service that. So I think the second thing would be your relationships and your networks, being able to really service that. And the third thing is building a reputation of trust and integrity. When people know that if I do business with this person, I'm going to get exactly what I have bargained for, it is a tremendous tool of influence, because naturally, once you have great relationships with your different spheres in your business or your career, and then you have great skill, and on top of that you have integrity, and people trust you, then naturally you're pulled into things you're not so you may not be qualified, forgive me, you pulled into things that you may not have had access to, and that gives you power. So that's the first question. So I'll have to come back and say again that it's difficult to put all the experience of 20-something years as a career professional into a few minutes, but I'm just going to highlight the top things that come to mind when I read out the questions. So the second question is, women are naturally emotional and oftentimes they tend to react to issues emotionally. From your experience, how does one manage professional affairs without letting emotions determine how to react? So this was a big challenge for me, and I don't think it's only limited to women. I think also when you are very young, you're starting your career, you have a tendency to be very emotional. I think the first step is understand yourself. This is very, very important. Understand your triggers, understand what sets you off, what doesn't set you off, and begin to practice how to manage this. So for example, one of my own triggers is when I am accused or told I have done something I haven't done. So if they say, this happened to me just yesterday, my colleague, I was setting up a call with my colleague and he hadn't updated his calendar in Outlook. So I set up the call, everybody's calendar for that time is free, and he accepts a meeting after the meeting I had scheduled. And instead of him just saying that, he sends a mail to everybody on the call to say something like, Napa, next time use my calendar, implying that I didn't know how to use the calendar tool. When I was younger, I would have really reacted to that because I know that I would have felt belittled, or I would have felt he's trying to undermine me. But I understand that that is my trigger. And what I do is I always count to 5 and then I weigh my response. So I have learned myself. I weigh my response. Is it worth responding in an emotional manner? And of course, they'll attribute it to the fact I'm a woman, and I let it go, only for me to find out the problem he was having is that English is not his first language. So he was translating, I think, from French or something to English in his mind. So that is why the email came out that way. So imagine if I had overreacted. on that email. So understand yourself. This is the first thing. Understand your triggers, what sets you off, and then begin to learn the tools to manage those triggers. That's the first point. The second point is I actually don't think being an emotional woman is a wrong thing. I think it's an asset because women are very intuitive. We're able to see the picture in a way that men can't see. So the second advice would be embrace your femininity. Don't try and be who you are not in a bid to become more like the men in the organization. So since you now know yourself, you've learned how to mask how to manage your emotions, your reactions, you understand your triggers, bring out your true self, be yourself. So for example, one of my favorite colors is pink. And the tendency is a male-dominated engineering environment. You wouldn't think that I would express it, but I express it. Most of my accessories, my Bluetooth is pink, my external hard drive is pink. It doesn't lessen my skill level by embracing who I am, and this gives off your authentic self. The third thing I would say is that if you find a way to do exercises that help you kind of learn how to react in the moment. That's one of the things I've noticed. A lot of people, you react in the moment as opposed to learning the things that help you kind of step back and look at the solution critically. Many trainings around this, being able to listen effectively, being able to communicate effectively. So build up the skills that will help you manage your emotions. Okay, the third question is, being a wife and mother requires that you make adequate time for your family in such a way that your job doesn't suffer. How do you manage your office affairs against your family? Okay, so my number one advice for this is don't listen to other people's advice, as strange as it may sound. When I first had my kids, it was at a time when crèches weren't as popular as they are now in Nigeria. So people kept on telling me, when I said I wanted to put my kids in a crèche, they were like, no, keep them at home, have help. But my primary purpose for parenting, my primary tool of parenting my children was time. I wanted to spend time with them. And I couldn't if I was leaving the house at 6 a.m. and coming back at 6 p.m. Then I'm very tired. So what I did was I ignored all the advice that I was given. I understood very clearly what was going to make my own family successful, and I implemented that. And how did I implement that? I looked for a crèche that was very close to my office, and I would drive to work with my kids, have breakfast with them, or they would eat breakfast and I'll hang out with them. And then I would come to the crèche in the afternoon, or if I'm going for a meeting, I'll pass through, swing by, say hello, spend like an hour with them, and then we'll go home together. So I spent a significant amount of time with my kids. So look for what works for your schedule. That is it. Number one. Don't follow the crowd. Everybody's going to be in your ear as to how best to parent your children, but you understand your schedule, you understand your kids. The second thing is you do not have to be superwoman. I started outsourcing a lot of the tasks in my house that didn't impact my children or my family's welfare or future. So for example, going to the market, I see a lot of superwomen that they work Monday to Friday, and Saturday morning very early they're going to the market to stock up for the week, then they spend the rest of the Saturday cooking. I didn't do that. I looked for somebody that I outsourced it to, and then Saturday morning I spend time with my family. We'll go and play soccer. So learn how to outsource the tasks that don't mean anything in the long run. Third thing is prioritize. For a lot of women, you are under pressure from society. You want to have 4 children, 5 children, because of the kind of goals I had. I wanted to have children that I was really close to. I wanted to have a happy marriage, but I also wanted to be career focused. I understood very early on that I couldn't have 4 children or 5 children because I wouldn't be able to parent effectively, and I wouldn't grow as much as I wanted in my career and business. So you have to also have the right spouse that can understand and support a lot of the dreams and desires that have been placed into you. So my top 3, I would say. All right, so the next question is, men oftentimes like to be in charge and they do not appreciate a woman telling them what to do. How does one handle this category of people? Okay, so 2 types of men you'll meet in the organization, those that report to you and those that do not. You have to always, within these 2 classes, understand which of these men are most important to making your job successful. If you have a man that doesn't like hearing from a woman, and he isn't necessary to your job success, keep a cordial relationship, but try and create space between you and him. Avoid friction where possible. Now, I had a case like this of somebody that reported to me and really didn't believe women should be in any position at all of influence. In fact, I had a review session with him that didn't go well, and he found my husband's number and he actually called my husband to tell him, look, see what your wife is doing. So you can imagine where that came from. If the person reports to you, you have to understand why the person is working. You have to understand what the person sees as success. So, for example, a man under you that doesn't believe women should be in positions of authority may want to be promoted in a year or may want to have massive commission in a year. You have to know what is motivating you at work. Now, that motivating factor, you have to now put a plan in place to help him get his whatever is motivating him. So if it's more money, you can now say that you're going to possibly go to management and see if they can resegment his account to create a bigger field for him to play in. Once anybody, male or female, sees that you are focused on that thing that is making them stay in the organization, they're going to give you 100% support. This is the truth. Whether you are a woman, man, or male or female, so long as you are helping them achieve whatever goals or objectives they have in the organization. So that's what I say. And then another thing I'll just add to this is do not be afraid to handle your business. A lot of women have a tendency to think if I'm too aggressive, if I'm too forward, they'll say that it's because I'm female. No. See what I say. Be yourself. Something I'm very consistent in saying. But where you see injustice or you see somebody is taking advantage of your nature, you have to be firm. If you need to practice how to have a stance against things, do it. So you can stay in your room and say, I do not appreciate this. Please let it not repeat itself. Practice it. So when the situation arises, you're able to say it without stuttering or stammering, or the worst ever is crying. Okay, so the next question is, as a woman in management level, what are the major challenges you've encountered and how have you been able to manage them? There are many things you encounter. I have encountered, let me speak to my own personal experience. I've encountered people not thinking you know anything because you're female. I've been in situations where I had to go with a junior male employee just so that the door could be open because it wouldn't open for a woman. See what I say? Every challenge you encounter in life is always negated by vision and purpose. This is what has helped me. If you know exactly where you're going, if you know what you want to achieve, it is easy for you to manage all these challenges of life. Because a lot of us don't really know where we want to get to, when there's a roadblock put in your way, you're not thinking of how do I go over this roadblock to continue my journey, but you're thinking, oh my God, there's a roadblock, what do I do? So if you want to grow in career or business and you want to get to that top level where you're a woman of influence and power, you're going to encounter, of course, chauvinist men that are chauvinistic in nature, that don't believe women can do things. You're going to, at times, be at a disadvantage with your colleagues that are not married, or guys that are married and their wives take care of everything at home. You're going to encounter all these things. So as you are visioning your life and purposing for your life in the future, you have to put things in place that will make it possible for you to overcome a lot of these challenges. So for example, I always say one of the best relationships you have is your house help, your nanny, your office assistant, whatever you call the person. So you need to keep that relationship going. For you, you may say, I need to invest in a driver, I need to invest in a cook, I need to invest in some key high-level female relationships in my organization as well. This helps me a lot for mentorship coaching. I look for women that have the same values and virtues as me, because apart from being female, I'm also a Christian. So I even play by a completely different set of rules than my colleagues that are male and they're not Christian. So I look for those kind of people that are higher up than me that can help me. So there are many things you can do, but I think the first thing is do I want to be the MD of this organization? Do I want to be an executive director? Do I want to own my own business? Once you've set that kind of vision and purpose with a with a timeline, you will now need to start building the structures that will make it possible. Whether it's to increase your knowledge, whether it's to have home support, whether it's to look for a mentor, whether it's to look for a coach. Those are the kind of things you need to do. So the challenges are too many to count. And the challenges are so numerous that for me to start listing 1, 2, 3 actually will water down the journey you need to go on. So this is my own advice, as funny as it sounds. Okay, so the last question is, what advice do you have for young women who aspire to become business owners, C-level executives, or CEOs? So I think I answered it in the last question. Know what you want. A lot of people aspire to have these positions of power or influence, not really understanding why they want it. Now, the reason I wanted to be C-level was because I wanted to interact with that level of people. I wanted to improve my network so that I could get access to people, women and men of power. And I wanted to be like Daniel. For my own motivation is I love the way Daniel in the Bible really elevated his own ministry and his own position by being in such a high level of government. That's it for me. And I've never ever felt that I was born to be ordinary. I tell my family and friends, I feel destiny percolating in my veins. So for me, it was such a driving force. So if you are comfortable or not comfortable, if you feel that you're not supposed to be at that C level, it's also fine. But if you want to be at that C level, be the best you can be. So rounding up, with the vision and the purposing and knowing who you are and all these great things is being the best. Do whatever it takes to make sure that you are known as somebody that has an excellent spirit, that has integrity. Let people say, I want this person to be on my team. I want this person to be part of my project. Because when she's part of it, it is successful. That's the level you get to where being female, being a different tribe, a different color, your skill and your reputation transcends a lot of things. You will still meet those challenges for sure. But it's always better to meet the challenges when you're known to be somebody that is so good at what they do and is known for it. So I hope this helps somebody. And thanks again to GMI for making this possible.